So, Paul, if you had to make one ritual monster your waifu, who would it be?
Wow, that's a great start. Nowadays, it's how they design half of them. So.
I mean, yeah.
Alex, today we're going to be talking about ritual monsters in
Yes.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Their history, how they started, where they are today, what we think of them. Oh yeah, I'm with Alex today.
Hey guys, I am not Alec.
I figured you would be a good one for this because I feel like you've played rituals in Yu-Gi-Oh!
I
At
may
pretty much all of
have
the times
played
you've
it the most. Maybe not in the sheer number of games, because you've got me beat by like almost triple at that point. But like, as someone who's played the most different ritual strategies, I think I have. Though you definitely got voice under your belt, and
Yeah, I've been
know
playing a lot of
how else
voices.
you played.
I have an interesting relationship with rituals just before you even get into this, because like at first I really was not. I didn't consider myself like a ritual duelist.
remember, yeah.
But in recent years, I've been playing more of them. So
The idea of ritual summoning was always cool.
it was cool, and I'm always fascinated by how Konami has taken a mechanic that, as we're going to discuss, was quite troubled at the beginning, and they've like slowly kind of found ways to support it and define it, and like kind of bring it up to a very playable and even sometimes like super competitive level. How would you describe like what's happening when you ritual summon? What is like the core? And when you were watching the anime or playing whatever, what was like the core appeal?
Yeah, so ritual summoning was supposed to be something that was really special and cool. It was essentially you taking two weaker monsters that you couldn't work with, and you would use a powerful ritual spell card to cash those monsters in to plop out a nice powerful ritual monster from your hand that was now more powerful than what your opponent had. You could wipe out what they've got and then finish them off pretty soon after.
And that's how the anime pretty much sort of depicted it, right?
Yeah, and it's like it's a ritual, so like dark magic, all this stuff. That's like very Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, it was very on brand. I think the first one in the anime is Yugi summoning Blackluster Soldier against Mai, which I remember, he was kind of back to the wall against like Harpy's pet dragon and everything. And like she had Mirror Wall up and all that stuff, and he's like able to summon Blackluster Soldier, Pegasus, Relinquished. Then Yugi also later summons Black Magician of Chaos in that same duel. So we see a few of them in the anime.
And every time they have high impact.
Yeah. I do think the way the anime depicted them, and I'm assuming that, they don't really explain it. I think that like rituals kind of come out of the ether a little bit. Like they're not actually in their hand.
Yeah,
I think Yugi
remember.
just draws, like, I think they would just draw the ritual spell and play that spell, but like Blackluster Soldier is just being called upon from like you're
like from an extra deck?
Yeah, it's almost like it's from an extra deck. Yeah, it's interesting because like diegetically speaking, I always thought the rituals made a lot of sense. They were, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has so much like sorcery and like witchcraft and dark magic, and so that did feel on brand. Early on though, they sucked.
Yo, yeah, they were terrible. I mean, these were mostly monsters that barely had effects, if that.
Bad effects, bad stats.
Yeah, I mean, there were multiple times I would play the game. I mean, rituals only showed up in what, Spell Ruler?
Yeah, or I guess Magic Ruler.
Yeah,
at
Magic
the time,
Ruler.
Yeah.
And I would like try to play my Crab Turtle or my Performance of Blades.
Yeah.
And I would just not, because my board state would be better if I didn't lose the two monsters it would take to make them.
It's actually a funny thing real quick too, is just that like rituals weren't there from the beginning. A lot of people I remember would like, they thought of it like, oh, like fusions and rituals were there from the start, but technically fusions were in the game from like the very start. Rituals were, it was like 3 sets in, so it was basically the same time. But,
Yeah, and I kind of forgot that over time.
Yeah, Magic Ruler introduced them. Yeah, they were bad stats, or like not great stats.
Yep.
They sat in your hand too.
And you couldn't
And you
do
couldn't
anything
really,
with them.
summon them normally in any way.
They were just bricks.
Now, one interesting advantage, I guess an advantage and a disadvantage they had compared to fusions that I always think about is like, fusions got to be in at the time, fusion deck. And so they didn't clog up your hand. It couldn't be like a brick. Polymerization could be a brick in your hand, or the materials might. But I guess the rituals, they could clog your hand, so they were worse.
But rituals never needed specific monsters.
Yes.
You just needed to have that level or exceed that level number of stars on the field or in your hand.
Yeah, which I think was supposed to be the balancing thing between them was like, rituals, you can use whatever you want, but with fusions, it's got to be specific, but like fusions are not...
Both were pretty bad.
They were both really pretty awful. I always sometimes think that like rituals, were meant to almost be more for the flavor and not actually were something that like were ever going to translate well to the game mechanics.
It could be.
Because like, I say that because it's like, they would come out of nowhere. Like I said, like, you know, when Pegasus or Yugi would summon one, it just kind of felt like Black Magician of Chaos was just comes out of the ether. You know what I mean? Like, it's so I think like when they had to translate them into the game, they were always going to have these weaknesses, and they had their work cut out for them in terms of trying to make these better.
Yeah, in the anime, they were big game-ending cards, but in practice, they never came anywhere close. And I think it's just because inherently that was a summoning system that worked better in anime form than it did in card game form.
I think there was only one good early like ritual monster, and it actually came, I think, in Magic Ruler, was Relinquished, right?
Yeah, Relinquish was the one.
Yeah, I could suck up a monster.
It had one level, so it was easy to summon with just about anything.
Yeah, I actually feel like that's like part of the key, a big part of it was just like, because these level 8s, like wasn't Crab Turtle a level 8?
8 or 7, I think.
Yeah, it was like these high level rituals, Hungry Burger and all that stuff, like, you know, those are pretty much asking for 2 monsters most of the time, so.
And the problem was, if you added the stats of the 2 monsters you normally use to make them, or even 3 monsters.
God forbid.
Yeah, even God forbid.
Wait, were you ever making rituals with 3 monsters? Surely
Almost
not.
never, but you know what? If you did, that's the only time the stats probably were higher on the ritual monster than 3 monsters.
I would sure hope so.
Because if you're using like a couple level 2s and 3s, those things had like nothing.
Yeah, I
for
guess
stats.
they wouldn't have had. That's true.
But if you use like 2 level 4s, like if I use 2 1400 monsters to make my Crab Turtle, I'm already losing out on attack points here.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's a special summon, which was very scarce early on. But yeah, I guess getting back to Relinquished, it did have a very powerful effect. Like, it's in a world where, like, we were mostly using just vanillas and beat stick type monsters, a card that could, like, suck up the monster and just use it for defense and all that. I remember Relinquished was pretty good, so.
Yeah, just get your opponent's most powerful monster just off the board.
I feel like there's a few other anime ones that we're maybe missing too.
Well, there's the ones from Battle City, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like
yeah.
Fortress Whale.
Fortress Whale.
Zera the Mant.
Yeah, and the Masked Beast.
Oh.
So I guess like early on, rituals were pretty iconic, but they sucked. Konami, I think, had a job to do with making these things good.
And I feel like they almost knew they couldn't be and didn't try to. Because they really did make a bunch of vanilla ritual monsters.
Yeah, rituals took, I think, a little bit longer than fusions to find their footing in the game. Like, I mean, I guess technically, like, early on, they both had, like, one decent monster that kind of broke the rules. Because, like, fusions had, like, Thousand Eyes Restrict, rituals had Relinquished. Funny how those are both kind of the same thing. I was looking at some of the early ritual support that came out. So technically, Sonic Bird and Senju of the Thousand Hands were in Magic Ruler.
Yes.
And this was interesting to me because these cards, if I'm remembering correctly, are the first like Stratos-like monsters that Yu-Gi-Oh got, where it's just like normal summon, get something to hand, is a completely free, like +1 in card economy cards.
And they needed it.
They did, yeah. Just because like rituals, like it asks for so many cards.
Yeah, either you're early game and you're about to lose 3 cards out your hand to make your ritual summon, or it's late game and you just drew they're top decking and you just drew your ritual spell and now you're gonna lose.
So I do think that's actually the first probably crucial part is like rituals of all summoning types deserve to be able to like get +1s in card economy, like 1 for 2 trades. That's actually something that I think we see throughout their eventual development is like, you know, this is sort of fast forwarding a bit, like with cards like pre-prep, where like you needed a spell that could literally get the ritual and its spell both to your hand. Because early on, even Sonic Bird and Senju together, still like, I mean, Senju could get a spell, but he still needed the monster. Manju could get the monster, he still needed the spell.
So it was still very disjointed, and they did not get around to fixing that very quickly at all.
Yeah, I think they fixed it with Manju in Invasion of Chaos, which like was 2005, I think, was an invasion, like early 2005 or something.
That sounds about right.
So it took a couple years for there to be a better one. But yeah, running Manju was always like objectively just the better thing to be doing.
And they tried some other stuff too, right? They made those attribute-based ritual spells.
That's true. That's true. You're talking about the ones where basically like
Earth Chant.
Yeah.
We all know Earth Chant, guys.
Yeah, Earth Chant, Contract with the Abyss, I think, for Darks. where it was basically like, because rituals were, so that's another thing too, I guess, with ritual versus fusion. Fusions, it's like, okay, you have poly and it will get you your fusion.
Yep.
With rituals,
There's always one
there's
specific
like one
spell.
specific spell. So imagine if you wanted to run a deck that had like multiple rituals in it.
You just never get
You'll just
anywhere.
never get the spell that you need. So I like that they were basically like, okay, well, what if we at least make like ritual spells that are just, this can summon any earth ritual.
Yep.
Or any like dark one. So now at least if you want to run multiple rituals, just make sure that they have matching attributes, and now the same spell can be used for, you know.
The weird part about that system was like they didn't really make that many ritual monsters to be used with these attribute-based spells, I feel like.
Well, I mean, there were a lot
some.
of rituals. It's just like, are you talking about like,
But
I
this
guess
is
like
pre-attribute day. I mean, pre-archetype days.
true, yeah.
So like you really were just if you were gonna do it, you were using those really bad vanillas.
Yeah, so it didn't really actually make the situation any better.
Yeah, though I guess Dark Contract had some utility because it could be used with Relinquished.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I guess later, we'll get into Demise because it's kind of coming up as one of the good early ones. There were some sparse ritual support cards, we'll call them.
Yeah.
Ritual Foregone. Do you remember this? It's actually an old spell. It's like a normal spell, and you get to summon a ritual monster from your hand. So you don't have to like, do a proper ritual summon, but it can't attack, and I think it like just gets destroyed at the end of the turn. So in early Yu-Gi-Oh, there's like nothing you can really do with that.
Yeah, what's the purpose of that?
I guess there's like an application. You could use it to summon your Relinquished out. Because I think it still got to use its effect. So summon out your Relinquished, suck up a problematic monster, and then like at the end of the turn, it's just gonna die. So I mean, but like, you know, so that's like something.
And that also reminds me of like Ritual Weapon.
Oh yeah, there was Ritual Weapon and there was Fusion Weapon.
Yeah, those really
bad
weird
equip
equip spells that just gave a ritual or a fusion monster a buttload of attack points
It
and
was
defense
what, like
points.
1,500?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, ritual weapon was 1,500. I feel like fusion weapon was maybe a bit less, but either way.
I think they were the same. I think it was
Were
like
they?
1,500.
Oh, okay.
But like
In Playground Yu-Gi-Oh, that was powerful.
in Playground Yu-Gi-Oh, that could be really strong, but also like if it was Playground Yu-Gi-Oh, you were probably like making some rule where you just skipped the ritual summoning and you just like summoned your Hungry Burger, because like who cares? Like I'll call on the ritual myself. Like you don't need the spell. Like that's what we would have done, I think, as kids. I was also looking at some others. There's Fulfillment of the Contract. This was their like kind of premature burial monster reborn card. I think you paid 800. You could summon a ritual from grave. I think a lot of kids found out the hard way.
That once you do,
You still had to like have properly summoned it.
Yeah, which still throws me for a loop every time that comes up in my life.
Yeah. So like they were trying to make stuff.
I think you should have been allowed to special summon rituals without ritual summoning if you had a card that could do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess fast forwarding super later on, did they ever? I don't know if they ever really like made it where you can do that. Yeah. Another card I was thinking of too is the advent of like cards like Ritual Raven, which might have been the only of its kind. I don't remember.
I don't think there's any other monster like Ritual Raven except for Low.
Yeah, there are archetype ones. Like I know like Gishki, I think, has one where like these monsters that count as the full ritual for a specific attribute. I think Gishki does. I think Gishki
probably only for a Gishki monster.
Yeah, it might be only for Gishkis, but yeah, I remember like Ritual Raven, like this was like 2007 or something. It's Tactical Evolution. If you're ritual summoning a dark monster, it will just fill the whole ritual. So you can see like they're trying to attack this problem from different fronts.
Like, the issue is card advantage, and so they're trying to lower the amount of cards you lose at any turn. And it wasn't focused, so it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't even like multiple, like there weren't a lot of those cards. Just like with those attribute-based ritual spells, we didn't even get one for every attribute.
Yeah.
Konami was very unfocused with this ritual support.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they were trying their best. Actually, no, this was not their best when I think about it. But
it was someone's. I'm sure someone in that office did try their best.
I think that the first like good ritual support card outside of Manju, obviously, was probably, I would say, Advanced Ritual Art.
I do like that one. I tried that out in my. Ooh, crap.
Because this
Kingdom Hearts themed ritual normal monster archetype.
Kingdom Hearts.
Magic-y. There we go.
Magic-y. Oh yeah, Magic-y. I forgot. I mean, Advanced Ritual Art was like, even from the start, it was like a pretty decent one because you would send the materials from your deck. But the catch was that
I think they all had
they had to be normal monsters. Or was it even, I don't think it was actually, I think it has to be only one normal monster or something. I don't know if you can use multiple.
I remember there was also another one that was the reverse. Like,
Is that Urgent Ritual Art?
not urgent. It was,
I know what you're thinking of because there are a few.
because one could ritual summon out your deck, and one could take the materials out the deck.
Right, okay.
And each of them
I'm gonna
use
look that
normal
up.
monsters. High ritual art.
Yeah. High Ritual Art. Advanced Ritual Art was cool because you could use a vanilla and you could send from deck. It's kind of funny because technically, when we were doing the fusion video, Alec and I were talking about how with fusions, it took a while for fusion spells to be able to send the material from deck. But Advanced Ritual Art was technically doing this like back in like 2007 or whatever. Still though, it meant that you had to send like the exact level. So I think like people would always run like, you'd have to run like a level 8 vanilla if you wanted to use it to make like your level 8 fusion or level 8 ritual. And so that meant that inherently you were still kind of asking players to run vanilla cards.
And vanilla cards were
So they're still
rough.
like bricky and rough and it's...
I mean, I think back when I was in like the 07 era, the only the only vanilla monsters I could be bothered to run in the deck was Go Giga and Blue Eyes.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Because they had high attack.
So technically speaking, if you were like running like stuff like Vorse Raider and Gemini Elf, it's the 1900
They were
beaters
actually
at the
very
time.
solid
They were
vanillas,
good.
you're right.
Yeah, but like I think with Advanced Ritual Art, you could only use one material. I'm gonna look that up actually.
When I played it in Magic, I only used one, but that's mostly because I was making level 4 rituals with it.
Okay, you can use multiple with Advanced Ritual Art. Okay, cool. I was like, I don't know why I thought it was only one. Yeah, so like Advanced Ritual Art was good. I remember that. I think the first like time that they helped them consistency wise, because I think up to now, up to this point in the timeline, I feel like what they've mostly been doing to help rituals is like they've been trying to ease the burden of like the material.
Yep.
Like Ritual Raven and like AR and Advanced Ritual Art or ARA or whatever. I think the first time that they worked on consistency again was with Preparation of Rites.
Yeah, that was and is still a strong ritual support card.
Yeah, it came out in Stardust Overdrive 2009, and it searched for a level 7 or lower ritual monster. So you couldn't get the strongest ones, but it was a level 7 or lower ritual monster, and you could also get its ritual spell from your grave.
Which is just like,
kind of
really weird, but
it meant that it was good in the mid game though.
Yeah, in the mid game it was clutch. It was excellent.
Yeah.
I remember I used that a lot in Nephthys. God bless Nephthys.
Yeah, I know Preparation of Rites was pretty good. There's like one ritual monster right around that time that people would use it with. Ooh. Herald of Perfection.
Perfection, yeah.
Herald of Perfection. Yeah, because that was one of the stronger rituals at the time. It was like pitch a fairy to negate stuff. So like, yeah, that was a pretty good one. I know later they made pre-prep. That was like...
And pre-prep is like kind of just considered better.
All around better. I know the only difference with pre-prep is that you get a ritual spell and then you get a monster that is specifically mentioned on that spell.
Yes.
So there are certain ones that you can't, like, so you couldn't get Earth Chant because Earth Chant doesn't, or you could get Earth Chant, but you couldn't get a monster with it because it had to be like mentioned. So.
Which is like weird that like all of these ritual cards had this disjointedness to them where this can get you one thing or maybe that thing, but not that thing.
Yeah.
And you need all three of the things to actually make your ritual summon happen.
I think that it just comes back to that card economy thing where like rituals, they're asking for not only a surplus of cards, but also somewhat specific particular cards.
Because while fusions wanted particular monsters, ritual spells technically need the ritual monster and the spell plus the materials.
And it's all gonna be in your hand for the most part. Like it's asking for just so much.
Yep, and it wasn't getting much better. Thankfully, there was one card that I don't see get played anymore that I think was probably really handy for early ritual like decks. Ascending Soul.
Ascending Soul, which one was that?
That was the one that once per turn, when you would ritual summon a monster, you could grab one of the tributed monsters from the grave and add it back to hand.
Oh, so kind of recouping. That kind of reminds me of what Megalith would go on to many years later.
Like honestly, like modern ritual strategies do that by themselves.
Right, they really have to. I think that the first good ritual monster outside of Relinquished from the start, the first one that like made other tournament impact was Demise.
Demise was something special, yeah.
Yeah, Demise, King of Armageddon. I'm actually just looking him up.
And I remember the art for its ritual, what was it, End of the World?
Yeah, you summon him with End of the
wild.
World, and his effect was really powerful. It's pay 2,000 life points, destroy all other cards in the field. So I remember the thing with him was basically like, there's also like Ruin Queen of
Yeah,
Oblivion.
you have to use
but
both of
nobody-
them in the deck.
Well, you didn't even have to use her, because I don't think people would use her very much.
I think people,
Because
there was some reason you use both.
You could, and they later made them into an archetype, might be what you're thinking of.
Could be, yeah.
Because Ruin and Demise are actually, fun fact, they were supposed to emulate Chaos Emperor Dragon and Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the End with their
I forgot
effects.
that.
Because Chaos Emperor Dragon, remember, can like pay 1,000 and like nuke the field and hands.
Yep.
Demise is a little bit weaker, you pay 2,000 and just nuke the field. And like Blackluster Soldier has a thing where if you attack a monster, it gets to attack again. And Ruin is the same thing where like she attacks monster again.
And I think those are probably the first specified ritual monsters that use the same ritual spell.
That's true. They would go on to later do that in archetypes, but this is true. This is the first time that like one spell can summon one of two monsters. So
Yeah, like the attribute ones were fine in that regard, but since they never actually specified monster names, they couldn't make good use of your preparation of rites. But these guys could.
yeah, and I think like I wasn't playing Yu-Gi-Oh back when the Demise deck was like really good, like sort of a meta thing. But I imagine like a deck with just Manjus and like stuff like that wouldn't be that bad because Manju could sort of search for whatever pieces you were missing, and because Manju is level 4 and Demise is level 8, like if you're running enough 4s, then you could at least guarantee that your levels would always be like any 2 level 4s in your deck, and you would just get your Demise out. And even though you're losing a lot of cards for ritual summoning, once Demise resolves his like field nuke, it might not matter. It's just like you just clear the whole board. So
Yeah, and that was really cool and powerful. I remember when those cards came out, I believe I was in middle school, I think. I don't care.
I'm trying to see what year this came out in.
And we would
2006.
like one of my friends got their hands on like one copy of Demise, and it never came up because they're playing Playground Yu-Gi-Oh! And didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, he probably just chose to summon it when he wanted to.
No, he tried to use the spell. Like he didn't have 3 copies of it or Demise.
Yeah,
So
man, consistency is a bitch when you're younger.
Yeah.
You're like a kid and you buy Yu-Gi-Oh packs and you get like one Demise.
and now you're like you want to build your whole deck around this one card that you cannot see. Like ever.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like if you wanted to even just run a Demise, like you need like 3 Demise and like 2 to 3 copies of because you have to see these cards for it to work.
And like if you were like intelligent and like well read, you would have known about Dark Contract. You could have run Dark Contract in there too.
That's true. Yeah. Or Contract with the Abyss.
Sorry, yeah.
What is Dark Contract?
I don't know what Dark.
Is that a DD
Did I
card?
make that up?
Well, no, I feel like there's like a card called Dark Contract. It just does something else.
yeah, it probably
I don't
does.
know. But anyway, yeah, no, like he was the first, I think, really good tournament one that I remember hearing about because I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! In like kind of 2008-ish. So like I remember that was just after I think Demise was beginning to not really be played as much.
Yeah, I believe. I never think about this, but I spent some time outside of Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. I do not know what years those were.
Yeah, for me, it was like this is tangent, but like whatever. I started in 2002 and played till like about like at least early 2005, something like that. Because I remember going to see the Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie, and that was like late 2004 when that came out. And I think so I was still in like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Craze. So I think I just quit at like 2005-ish. It's like late 2005, and I didn't get back in until 2008. So I had a gap. There was like a gap.
When you got back in, I know I was out because
Okay.
I know I spent at least 1 to 2 years of high school not playing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a big rediscovery of it in high school. And so we ended high school still playing.
Yeah.
And then I met you right after that. Well,
Yeah,
like a year.
a couple years. Yeah, because my big break with Yu-Gi-Oh was in basically like sixth grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, because I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh basically like at the start of like I was in 8th grade, I want to say. So, or maybe like late 7th grade, I don't know.
I was just tired of like not knowing how to play the game and losing the people who could.
Yeah, that's it. It's an interesting thing. Yu-Gi-Oh! It takes on such a different, like when you're trying to actually learn how to properly play it, there is like a little bit of like a crushing, like you just have to like,
Because like you could,
your old stuff just doesn't work.
You would just lose to that one person.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be a fight. Back to the top.
Yeah, sorry, we're tangenting. These people know why they're here. They know what they're watching.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were just talking about Ascending Soul and how that was like a decent ritual support card.
Yeah, it was decent. There were a few other ritual things before we actually get into the archetypes, because obviously that's the bulk of the video too. Herald of the Arclight, I remember.
Herald.
This came
we
out
still play it even now.
Yeah, it's played even now. It actually just got banned on the TCG. Like literally just got banned. So it was weird because it was a synchro monster. And I remember it came out like later in the 5Ds era. Like it was...
Yep, it was not early.
Not like early in 5Ds, but when it's sent to the graveyard, you search for a ritual spell or a ritual monster. And it was technically part of that whole Herald line, which was always... That whole, like, those Herald cards were indirectly ritual coded cards.
Yeah.
Because there was obviously Herald of Perfection.
And it's weird because they were, well, kind of counter fairies.
Yeah, like counter fairies had like a little mixed identity now that I think about it.
Yeah, because back then I was playing counter fairies. I was collecting every card I could identify as a counter fairy.
You played counter fairies?
Yeah, that's cool. When I realized I was smarter than other people. Because, now hear me out. The reason was I realized that counter fairies and counter fairy adjacent cards had a similar design aesthetic. They had the silvery mechanical angel look with gemstones on the inside of them.
And so you were able to know what to add.
Yeah, I figured out what they all were.
You know, that's
even
true.
Like the majestic mechs, even though they weren't like specifically counter fairies, they were
supposed to kind of work. That's true, because as a kid, I'm not gonna lie, we were all like fucking idiots and none of us knew. Like we were just grabbing cards. So Herald of the Arclight though, it was I remember at the time, like nobody really thought much about it because it had like two different purposes. Like as a synchro, it was sort of a little mini floodgate and it can negate something by like tributing. So
yeah, it wasn't bad.
So there were certain decks that would make that, but make it for that. But also you could just send it from your extra deck to the graveyard through various means. Early on, it was kind of a difficult ask. But it could basically be a search. So like Gale Dogra.
Yeah, I'm about to say that.
Gale Dogra was that one weird old monster. You pay 3,000, send a monster from your extra deck to the grave.
And then you win, because if you don't, you just pay 3,000.
Yeah, so it's like you would pay 3,000, send a Herald, search for a ritual. You could actually pay 3,000 again if you wanted to, and just send 2 Heralds and like immediately get like all your searches. But later, I think that they made that process easier because they made Extra Foolish Burial.
Yep. Which that's also a card that still gets played today.
Yeah,
depending on
some decks can still use that.
Because I think I played it in one of those ritual decks.
Yeah, and then...
Oh God, was it Nephthys?
It sounds like a lot of your ritual stuff went in Nephthys.
Because that was...
Poor thing.
Nephthys was the first ritual deck that I played actively trying to make it work. It never worked.
And then they made Diviner of the Herald, which was...
Diviner, yep.
Diviner was definitely... You could tell that was designed to send Herald of the Arclight. So now, effectively, Diviner of the Herald is a Manju. Because you normal summon it and you just send Herald and then like you get whatever search you want.
Herald searches for you, so now you have more consistency.
Yeah, you have consistency. And then if you tribute that same Herald for a ritual summon, it will get another effect too. So like they were starting to kind of pay for itself. So like that was always cool.
Dude, you know, out of all the ritual decks I've played, I've never used Diviner of the Herald.
Yeah, it's kind of, so what's interesting about that is, because you've played a few, what all ritual decks have you played?
So I already mentioned Nephthys. That was like, I'd say, the first ritual deck I played. Because I really liked, Nephthys, because it was an older Yu-Gi-Oh card that I remembered really well.
Yeah, they retrained it.
And they retrained it, made it blue, added some girls to it. That was fun. But I also played Incantations. I played Incantations in both Nephthys and in Megaliths.
Yeah.
So
Megalith was
really
another
cool.
one of the ones you played. As far as ritual archetypes go, with Diviner, it tends to work better for the fairy-based ones.
Yeah, and I haven't played a fairy-based ritual deck before.
Yeah, because I know like Diviner is kind of, I always associated Drytrons, but also like Cyber Angels.
Never played them either. I came close though.
The obvious is like Herald of Perfection decks and like Dogmatica, stuff like that.
Dogmatica has ritual cards.
They do have rituals. Nobody really... They have 3. They have 3 rituals, I think. And I use them all. I like the Dogmatica deck. We'll get into the archetypes in a second, but
We haven't even gotten to the Djinn monsters yet.
Yeah, that's them, the Djinns.
See, I missed the Djinn. I don't know when they came out, but I wasn't there for most of them. I didn't know about them until later.
Yeah, it was like 14, 15. I remember because Nekroz used them, and they were infamous for that.
That's true, yeah.
Because the Djinn releaser of rituals, that was like the one that got banned, I think. It was like, when you used any of them for like a ritual summon of a monster, that monster would gain effects while it was on the field, which I thought was a very cool concept for the Djinns.
In fact, I feel like the Djinn should have come out way earlier to give vanilla ritual some effects.
You're so right. That actually would have been really cool. That would have been an interesting thing. You know what? The Djinn should have come out, and really like the spells could have even been doing that.
Yeah.
A certain ritual spell that like ritual summon a dark monster, and it also gains some little effect or some attack boost or whatever. But yeah, when I think about the Djinns, I know Releaser got banned because it was the one where like your opponent couldn't special summon or something like that. Like neither player could special summon while that ritual monster's on the field.
Yep.
So obviously that's just a floodgate.
And no one likes a floodgate.
But I remember a funny story about that was like the Nekroz decks would all use the Djinn guy, and there would be this thing in tournaments where people would make like, they'd have like a gentleman's agreement to side deck it out of their
That's
decks
very nice of you guys
too.
who did that.
But then the thing was like, there's like a sportsmanship problem because like, well, what if, so you and I are both playing Nekroz, and we're gonna agree to side out the Djinn and be like, okay, like, we're just not going to use this because it's toxic. Let's have an actual duel. But I actually just kept mine in.
It's like, oh,
and it's a tournament, so it's like, well, what obligation did I have to tell you the truth, right? And so I think Konami has since like made some policy around like, you can't like say no gentleman's agreements with your opponent. Like you can't say what you're siding and not siding. You have to just keep it private because people would break the rules. And
yeah, because like lying can be the grimiest thing you can do in a card game.
I remember actually there was like one player, I don't remember who, but there was like a player who he main decked 2 and he would tell his opponent, okay, like, I'm siding it out, and he'd only side out 1 and show them like, oh, I'm siding it out, look, Alex, I'm taking the Djinn out of my deck to prove that I'm honoring the agreement. And then like when I use it anyway, I'll be like, oh well, I had 2, I only sided out 1. You can't technically say I lied, you know, like that type.
Ooh. Yu-Gi-Oh! Brings out the worst in people. A lot of weevils in this Underwood.
But anyway, the Djinn monsters, they were things. And then I think, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was about to say, I also played a little bit of Nekroz. For like a week, I built the entire deck, liked it, loved it, did not play all that much, and then moved on.
Yeah, Nekroz was one of the archetypes that was really good. I guess that's a good segue into the archetypes. We've talked enough about the support cards.
I mean, Nekroz was also like the first like good ritual archetype, right?
I believe so. I think like, you know, there were, up until then, there would have been good one-off cards, like Relinquished, good one-off. Demise, good one-off. I feel like there's probably one other like one-off thing in the 5. There's like something I used in the 5Ds era, some cool ritual monster I liked. But like,
because I don't think Gishki was like good. It was there.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe you could argue Gishki was the first good one because
they had the hand loop.
They had a hand loop. Yeah, they had a hand loop, and they did get banned for it. But like, as an archetype, it wasn't the archetype. I don't think people were saying was good at the time. It was just like that one little isolated thing. Nekroz was the first time that like an archetype was good.
That was a good time to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Too.
And it wasn't just that like Nekroz were good. They were like the best deck of the game at that time. And I think that what they basically did to fix rituals, because I guess getting back to the whole like all the inherent flaws, was they gave the ritual monsters effects in the hand.
Yep.
And that was like the secret sauce, right?
Yep, you could use these Nekroz monsters in the hand, discard them to get some kind of protection effect.
A search or whatever. I remember Nekroz of Clausulus got like a monster, and Brionic got a monster, Clausulus got a spell trap.
You know who we've ignored this whole time? Saravis.
Saravis was a fun little one-off too.
Yes, Saravis was a great one-off ritual monster.
He was fun. I liked him because I play Voiceless Voice now, so like he's now kind of got a whole archetype sort of around him. Yeah. But like at the time, he was a one-off monster. He could negate like any inherent summon or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like he could negate a Synchro, an Xyz or whatever, and he'd banish the card too, which was cool. And he'd bounce himself back to the hand. And in the hand, if your opponent used an effect that targeted one of your monsters, you could pitch Saravis to negate that effect.
Yeah, I played him in Nekroz for sure. Like that was one of my important cards because Protection's important, guys.
Yeah, it was a very cool one. What was I gonna say about Nekroz? Yeah, they were really good, and by giving the monsters effects in hand, I think that was a big part of like patching up that obvious hole that rituals usually have. So
Yeah, and like this was a ritual deck that had 1 or 2 ritual spells. I think it had maybe 2 to 3 ritual spells total by the end.
Oh yeah, because Mirror, Kaleidoscope, I think those were the 2 at the time.
At least one more later.
Yeah, and then later they got another one.
And that was great because that meant you had a one-stop shop for all your ritual monsters.
Yeah, I also think Kaleidoscope sent from deck as well.
Yeah, that was a powerful one.
I think Kaleidoscope was the really strong one, so that was like a thing. I also know that there was like, as far as powerful ritual ones go, Drytron, pretty iconic one. That was like 2020.
Yeah, I mean, once again, a ritual deck was in the limelight for a good long time with Drytron.
What was cool about Drytron was that it made a lot of use of Cyber Angels as well, because they used Benton and they used...
I remember that, yep.
Like Cyber Angel Natasha, I believe, was one of the... Either way, like, yeah. So that was kind of a fun combination thing. They're really strong. They got around the ritual weakness by basically being like, you tributed a like monster from your hand to summon the Drytron. I didn't play this deck, so I'm trying to recall off the top of my head.
I did play Drytron, okay.
I didn't, yeah.
I didn't either.
I remember I was interested in it when I first read it.
I liked the idea of it, but I chose the bad one. I chose to play Arctic.
Oh, yeah. They were in the same, or no.
They were related archetypes.
They're related,
And
yeah.
I chose the Space Bears, not the Space Dragons.
Yeah, so Drytron, they would like summon themselves out by like tributing another monster. And then when they would get summoned out, they would search for either a ritual spell or a ritual monster, or like something like that. And so they would recoup your advantage. And then I remember that Medianus Drytron was the spell. And it could summon their monsters from the grave or the hand.
Which is great.
Which was cool. Oh, and their whole gimmick, they ritual summoned not by level, but by attack points.
Yes, that was it.
That's what it was. That was really
That
unique.
was actually very neat. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. What if that was an old Yu-Gi-Oh? How do you think that would go? Like if like old Yu-Gi-Oh had done ritual summoning where instead of the levels having to add up, you had to pay an attack point.
We would have the same
Would that be
problem.
better or worse?
We have the same problem.
It'd probably be the same.
Because your monsters, like, on the board you'd be ritual summoning with anyway would probably have more attack points than the one ritual you're making.
Yeah, that's true. If it had to exceed the attack.
Because I'm not gonna, again, I am not going to use I'm not gonna love using 2 like 1400 attack monsters to make a 2350 crab turtle.
Yeah, I think that if they had made it that way, then the attack points would have needed, well, if they made them higher, they'd be asking for more. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do that.
I feel like at the very least, ritual monsters' attack and defense should have been equal to the sum of the materials.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying like rituals should have been like a blank slate?
A question mark.
A question mark. That's dangerous though, because
I don't
then
care.
that means.
I don't give.
Wait, so what
care,
happens
guys.
with Ritual Raven? Your ritual gets like
Ritual
300 attack, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because remember, Ritual Raven like it's a whole.
No, yeah.
But then it's point. Okay.
You're gonna earn it, okay?
Okay.
But remember, if we did this would change the entire trajectory
that's true. It would have
of
been
ritual.
because Drytron was custom designed to work that way. Because all the Drytrons had 2,000 attack.
Yeah.
And their ritual monsters would have like 4,000. So it was always
very powerful, meaty dragons.
Yeah.
And they were hard to keep out the game.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because the Drytron deck technically didn't even like it only used like one of its rituals, and then they would be making like a Herald of Ultimateness. Like they were kind of making a mixture of Cyber Angels, Herald cards, and like one of the Drytron on theme Drytron cards. Because Drytrons had 2 different rituals, and they got like a 3rd one later.
Yep.
But there was only one that was like a kind of interruption in the opponent's turn.
Yeah, pure Drytron was playable, but it was not
That was
nearly
not the
as
way that you
strong
were-
as the
Kind of hybrid thing.
deck. Yeah.
Some other ones that were like meta viable was like Voiceless Voice, fairly
played
recent.
the heck out of
I
that.
play a load of that. Currently, Mitsurugi. What's cool about Mitsurugi is they sort of feel similar to what Drytron and stuff was going for, where like the ritual monsters, when they are, or similar to Nekroz, when they're tributed, they get a search and then they can also revive themselves. So you're kind of rewarded for, even if you have to use your own ritual monsters for tributes for themselves, they'll still like be recouping.
Yeah, you'll get to proc entering the battlefield effects again because it's coming out of the graveyard now. and now you're getting the effects off the new one you summoned with it. So that's pretty good.
So yeah, it's just a very recursive loop. I honestly hate facing that deck. It's annoying, but it's effective as ritual decks go.
Yeah, and right now it's the most powerful one we know of.
Yeah, it is currently the strongest thing. Some other weaker, less notable ritual archetypes, if we have any of these that we like.
Yeah, we talked about Gishki already. It was like one of the early, like, decent ritual archetypes of like ever.
Prediction Princess is one that I didn't play, but it was flip effect monsters.
Yes.
That was kind of a...
People liked it, but it wasn't...
It wasn't great.
It wasn't great.
Because you really haven't... Now that I think about it, of course, it was doomed to fail. Like, you're combining two underwhelming, like, slow, clunky
things together,
flips and... You know.
And then they added, like, support for them, but, like, it wasn't enough. Because what was it? It was Prediction Princesses, and then these, like, what? Like little pixies that could also do something similar?
I mean, there was like Spirit of Wind, or this one wind monster that, like, when it was summoned, you would search for a flip monster. That might not be what you're thinking of. I don't really remember.
It's not what I'm thinking of, because I remember Prediction Princesses were like these women who, like, look like mediums. And I remember at some point they came out with a sub-archetype of Prediction Princess monsters that weren't Prediction Princesses. They were like these chibi-fied girls that somehow worked with them.
Okay, yeah, someone in the comments.
It was something related to Prediction Princess in the name. I do not remember the rest.
Also, another one I didn't play was Shino Birds. That was Ritual X Spirit.
Yes.
Which I didn't play it, so I don't remember.
But apparently
it
got pretty far, like, up the competitive ladder. People liked it.
Yeah, it was Shino Baron, Shino Baroness. And I don't know if people... I feel like there was some reason it got some attention. Because I don't remember it being like a strong tournament deck, but I remember, like, people were maybe teching something from it.
Something like that.
I don't remember. I don't know. We talked about Megalith a little bit.
Yeah, Megalith, that's a cool one. It's, like, playable right now because it got new support as well.
So how did they answer the question?
They didn't really run ritual spells.
Yeah.
Their higher level ritual monsters could be their ritual spells, though the hand advantage suffered pretty hard for it.
I think actually all of their monsters could do, because even the low levels can do it.
Yes, they could. They just couldn't do it at spell speed 2.
Right, okay. Because the high level ones could pitch themselves from the hand to do it.
And
one of them could do it as a quick effect. Too. And then the low level ones, they could use themselves to, like, do a ritual summon, but, like,
it was when they were on the board already.
Which, so it's like,
so like when you start your plays, you would use your high level one, then use, like, some materials in your hands. So now your hands drop down by like 2 to 3 cards already.
Yeah, it depletes your hand fast. With them, they had to make it where, like, they had that trap card that would constantly bring ritual monsters back, and, like, the field spell where, like, you'd get a ritual back each time you ritual summon. Yep. So, like, they had to try to build in these ways
that resource loop
to resource up your hand again.
But it was really neat. I enjoyed it, and there was, like, I was actually able to get some work in with Megaliths. But let's be real, it was Block Dragon.
Yeah, Block Dragon kind of carried it, and I remember Block Dragon got banned for a pretty long time. So
yeah,
you know, like,
that kind of killed Megaliths, because Megaliths had legs as long as Black Dragon was in the game.
Black Dragon. We talked about Cyber Angels, but I will say one other cool thing about the Cyber Angel archetype is, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, they were a precursor to Mitsurugi. Oh. Because they also were like, they would all get effects when they retributed. So they were unique ritual monsters in that, like, their regular on-field effects weren't that special or notable.
They're like battle control effects, I believe.
Yeah, little battle control things, but, like, when they retributed, they would get additional things. The most notable being Bin 10, because when you tributed Cyber Angel Bin 10, it could search for any fairy from your deck.
Which is powerful for a fairy ritual deck for sure.
So yeah, so now you can actually, like, search for Diviner, search for another Cyber Angel, search for, like, whatever other, you know, like, Herald cards and stuff. So
yep,
that was a cool thing.
I think a really neat one that I don't think was too strong was Vendread.
Yeah, like, they were neat.
Yeah, what was really their thing? Was claim of fame?
They weren't very good, but their thing was they were like the Djinn monsters, where the small Vendreads
when they were being used, they would give them more effects. Yep,
which was actually on theme because where Vendread Slayer was, like,
slaying these ghouls and then, like, absorbing their powers.
Yeah, so I always like when there's a cool, like, diegetic reason for why the archetype works that way. So that was cool. Yeah. What was Nephthys's, like? I know we've talked about it a few times now.
So Nephthys's gimmick Now, I do not remember too well because it has actually
It's
been
been
a
a
decade.
while, yeah.
But I believe it was still themed around destruction and rebirth. I believe while the girls weren't destroying themselves, they would try to make a Nephthys ritual monster that would blow itself up, I think.
Yeah, I think it was like that.
God, it's been too long.
I remember because we were working on that
Let me
deck.
just-
Like,
let me
yeah, you
just
can
see.
have a look.
Sacred
I don't
Phoenix
know.
of Nephthys, I think his name was.
Well, Sacred Phoenix was the original monster, but
Crap.
but like
Cerulean, I think.
Yeah, Cerulean. That's what it was called. Cerulean Phoenix of Nephthys
There
was
it is.
like
Let's
their
see.
new boss
Images.
monster, and like he.
Okay, let me see.
a
So during your main phase, you can destroy Nephthys cards in your hand. Oh, and face up on the field. That's how it was. You destroyed your own cards, but maybe not
And they would
specifically
get, like,
Cerulean.
And they'd probably get.
And then you can
effects.
destroy, and then destroy an equal number of monsters your opponent controls. So you can clear the board with your Cerulean Sacred Phoenix by negging
by
yourself.
using. But then also the Nephthyses that you destroyed would probably get little searches
Yeah.
and stuff.
So
right?
if you destroy the Cerulean during your standby phase after it was destroyed by battle or card effect, you can bring it back to the graveyard.
Yeah.
So you would basically, now I can see it in my head again, you would set up combo plays to bring out your Phoenix, blow it up and maybe one or two other things, remove problem cards from your opponent, then it comes back, rinse and repeat every single turn.
So it's kind of the cycle of rebirth thing.
It didn't work well for me.
Yeah, I remember that one not being great. One that I also haven't played, but it's interesting, is Nouvelles. That's the food.
The Hungry Burger one.
Yeah, the Hungry Burger. It's like the restaurant, and that was actually cool. I like when they take like an old card and they just sort of bring it back.
Get some life to it.
So the Nouvelles, I know that their general gimmick is that it's a bunch of these little fiend cooking guys, and like they.
You mean chefs?
Well, they aren't the chefs.
Oh.
Because the chefs are other monsters. The chefs are like, they're in the archetype. So there are monsters that are chefs, and then the Nouvelle things they summon are like food fiend things or whatever. And so anyways, what they do is like, they tribute themselves and an opponent's attack position monster to summon the next higher up ritual.
Oh, yes.
So in theory, you can like clear your opponent's board by like ritual summoning a small one. It takes itself and one of like your monsters, and then like you make another one and it takes that, so you like can kind of clear your opponent's board to make something like
trying
that.
to get to the, I guess each one's like a
It's like you're combining.
You're feeding your opponent. You're making like, I guess, carnivorous food. So
Yeah.
the food is eating your opponent's monster, and you move on to the next course.
I think that's what's supposed to be like courses in like a.
I think so.
Another one that I have not played is Libromancer.
Yeah.
I was kind of interested in that. It's their not comic book. Well, one of them's a comic book guy. They're people who read books.
Yeah, they're like kind of magical people.
They read different genres, and then when they do their ritual thing, they kind of become the characters in the books they read, and they get beneficial effects. I think their thing is they get more beneficial effects if you use monsters on the field specifically for their ritual summon. So you don't want to actually just use stuff from your hand. You want to summon like Geek Boy and Fire and Magic Girl or whatever, and then like use them on the field as material.
Now, I could be wrong, but I think Libromancer is the first ritual archetype that was telling a story through its cards.
I want to say you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember like there actually is a Libromancer storyline that is told only through their own cards. There's no other cards that link to them.
Yeah, I guess you could argue that like technically Gishki and Nekroz are sort of doing that, but
Yeah,
they're part
they're
of
doing
a
bigger thing. But yes,
I get what you're saying.
what Libromancer was doing was only happening because these earlier archetypes were telling stories already too.
True. Oh, the only other one, Vendred, would be probably the other
Oh,
one. 'Cause
Vendred,
they're-
yes,
it's telling a story.
that's on me. Yeah,
No,
right.
no, you're good. And then Dogmatica, like I said, I play that. They're cool because their gimmick is like sending cards from both players' extra decks to the grave. So that's a unique gimmick. It's always fun to see like different little gimmicks appear because we've named a bunch of different ritual decks and they've all done different things.
Fairly different things.
So
And like a lot of it was in service of reducing like the overhead costs of ritual summoning.
yeah, did they all succeed? No. but they try.
And I think Konami has to play a balancing act game where we all know what like the perfect card to support ritual monsters could be. Is that a thing they should put in the game where you could get like a ritual monster, a ritual spell, and like one of the materials.
I mean, I was gonna say what a lot of people often cite is just put the rituals in the extra deck.
Oh, you mean like Ryuge?
Yeah, like Ryuge, that's the deck you play, yeah.
Yeah, Ryuge might be the best ritual deck.
It's one ritual monster. The last thing that I had on here that I just wanted to talk about is that there was a period of time, and I guess it still exists even now, where like Konami will just give a lot of random archetypes like one ritual monster.
Yeah.
Like Ryuga technically is that, but like there's like one Salamangreat ritual. There's like one random Burning Abyss ritual. There's like one Boral. There's one Fire Fist. Like it just kind of.
There's one Blue Eyes, right?
Well, they made a few Chaos.
Oh, they
Dragons
did
now.
in the
There's
more
Chaos
recent
Mag,
years, yeah.
Whatever.
But
like,
there's only one Red Eyes one,
that's.
right? I'm trying here.
Yeah, Lord of the Red.
Oh crap, that's more than
And
one.
then there's like Paladin of Red.
Crap, there's two then.
Either way, yeah. Point is, those are always strange to me because like
They're out of place.
they're basically they're kind of out of place, and like no archetype wants to have to run like just a single ritual monster
And
that you're
spell
expected to
combo.
summon. do the exception is like when they do it like how they did in Dark Magician, where it's Illusion of Chaos, but their ritual guy is like, well, they've had like Black Magician of Chaos forever, but like Illusion of Chaos is he reveals himself, searches for a Dark Magician card, and then you put like him back on the bottom of the deck or whatever. Like that's cool because it's kind of doing the Nekroz thing where he's fulfilling a purpose. Makonko does that with Ohime.
Yeah, I think it's important these ritual spells and or monsters have dual purposes.
Yeah, that seems like that's like a key thing is that you need to kind of give them multiple uses so they're not bricky and dead. So yeah, did we miss anything? I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure we touched a little bit on everything we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Like we just went through, I think, the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Ritual cards.
So what's the through line here, if you had to say? Like, I think for me, it's just they had to learn to give rituals a use.
Yeah, I think rituals
In
now
hand or
are
whatever.
in a far better place than where they started. Are they weird? Yes. Do we not really want to see them injected in existing strategies that don't really seem like they have the space for it?
Yeah,
No.
Right.
But when they make a fully well-crafted ritual archetype, it actually makes some really pretty fun decks.
Yeah, I'm impressed that Konami has been able to make them as diverse as they've been. Like when we were going through that list of archetypes, it was cool to see how they all kind of do a different thing. But yeah, I think that the main thing is like they've always struggled with just what they ask of you. Mm-hmm. And so Konami's job over the years has been, in many different ways, how can we allow ritual decks to get more advantage, recoup that card economy cost? Because like no other deck should really be allowed to have a card like pre-prep.
Yeah,
or a card like
it's
Manju.
far too strong of like card advantage. Getting like going plus one
ones for free from
advantage.
spells all the time. Because yeah, most decks is going to be like a 1-for-1, but rituals deserve it. Because
they have
to ask for so much.
You lose so much to have to do a ritual summon. So I think any way that the game can make ritual summoning less of a chore, I think it's worth it, because otherwise ritual summoning shouldn't exist.
So a quick question for the audience. What is the first ritual monster or deck that you played, and what is your favorite?
I'm very curious. Let us know.
I'd love to hear in the comments. And also, if you want to watch a video that we did about fusion monsters, you can watch it right up here. We talked all about the history of that and how it, like ritual, also sucked at the beginning. It's gotten much better.
Yeah.
With his brother.
Yeah, not Alex. He's Alec.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Pass turn.